Welcome to Season 1, Episode 1 of the Gen Eric Experience. My name is Eric Woods, and I'm not wearing any pants. Okay, a couple years ago, I tried this Facebook Live thing that everyone likes to do, and it was okay and all, but it really didn't jumpstart what I was really wanting to do, and that was a series of podcasts based on just things that I enjoy. So, topics that I'm interested in, that I'm familiar with, that I'm knowledgeable with. And now I have been attempting it again, so I've put together basically a 10-episode season of these podcasts, and I've already released the episodes on my Facebook page, so you can kind of get an idea of the titles, at least, of each episode, so maybe give you an idea of what they're going to be about. And, as we go along, I might decide to do 10 more episodes next year, who knows, and if that's the case, then maybe you can shoot me some ideas and I'll take you up on your offer. The only topic I won't talk about is politics because I hate politics. So I write a lot of material for this. I'm going to write a lot of material for these podcasts, but for the most part I'm going to be ad-libbing a lot of it from basically just notes and little outlines that I've come up with. You might see my eyeballs kind of wander every once in a while as I'm trying to figure things out because I've got the screen just kind of staring at me, and the camera, though, is way off to the side. So now I'm looking away because I'm trying to see myself in this. How do I look? Yeah, I just shaved this morning, so it looks pretty good. Okay, so this first episode I entitled The Future in Writing, and this is based on what is coming up as far as my writing goes. A couple months ago, I released or published my very first novel, and it's right here. I know you've all seen it. Don't try to tell me you haven't. It's called Pummeled, and this is something that has been in the works for decades. I have been interested in writing since grade school. Those of you who know me from grade school know that I love to write, and I've always wanted to write a novel. I've had a number of ideas over the years, but they've never really come to fruition for a number of reasons. Maybe because I have an idea and I start writing without doing any character sketches. I don't have an outline. I don't know where the story's going to go after the initial idea comes in. I don't know how it's going to end, and would get some severe writer's block and just give up after about 2,000 words. Well, guess what? If you're going to write a novel, 2,000 words isn't going to be enough. Pummel far exceeded my expectations as far as word count. It's probably roughly in the, I haven't checked the final word count, but I want to say it was between 115 and 120,000 words. So that's really a lot better than what I was kind of hoping for. Now, I finished the first draft about 2 years ago, and anyone who kept up with my author page or my Facebook page saw kind of the updates after a while, and there would be several months when I wouldn't post anything because nothing was happening. I mean, the editing process, I discovered, is extremely tedious, but it's necessary. So anyone who's interested in writing more than just short stories, I implore you to try to find someone to help you with the editing process. Find beta readers who can help you, give you ideas on how to improve the story, let you know if there's anything missing from the story, because that's my main idea when I came up with beta readers, is I want to know what's missing. Is there part of the story that doesn't make sense? Did I start a subplot and then just leave it? That's kind of what I want to do when it comes to beta readers and editing, is knowing what's wrong and how is this going to go smoothly so that it reads as a very solid, very strong novel. And the feedback I've gotten so far has actually been pretty good. I was hoping to get a professional editor, but those guys cost several $1,000s, and so if you want to send me several $1,000s, I'll get my next book professionally edited. Anyway, so the story for Pummeled is basically surrounds one central character, although there are many other characters, and it's kind of a 20-year journey of this young lady from childhood into adulthood and how she sort of discovers her fighting abilities. She has a very rough go after her father dies, and so she learns the world of MMA, and she gets into fights at school, and she ends up starting to hone her skills with a professional fight trainer, and it just kind of goes off from there in many other directions. So that's just kind of the general premise of the novel. Now, it took probably less than 8 months to write the first draft. So tell you the truth, it was longer to kind of edit and revise and get it all taken care of after the fact than it was to actually write the first draft. Once you get your ideas down and you're going, it's really not that bad. It kind of writes itself. But I would tell you why it took me so long is I never had an outline. Now, all writers are different. They're gonna do whatever they want to do to make their novels perfect. For me, coming up with an outline of the entire structure of the story, it really got it going that way, because I knew how I wanted it to start. I knew where I wanted it to go, and I also knew how I wanted it to finish for the most part. And by sticking to that outline, I was able to, I could actually jump from one part to the end part if I had some ideas that I wanted to put in there, and I would just come back to them later. I'd just work my way up to that part. So even if you get a little bit of writer's block, maybe move ahead to another part of the outline and say, well, this is what I want to work on at this point. And that's kind of what I did the whole time. So, all right. Again, I'm going to be taking a few notes here. So, some of you have read it, I know. I saw the sales. I've sold a few copies. I would like to get some more reviews on Amazon. So if you have read the book, I'd take a minute and go to the Amazon account and leave a review. That would help my standing out there. I know it's got a long way to go, but every little review helps. And there's also a site called Goodreads that you can recommend the book to your friends. So please do so. Now, and again, if you're going to buy the book, please buy the book. It's available on Amazon.com, or if you're local, contact me. I will hand deliver an autographed copy for you. So that's Pummeled in a nutshell. Again, you've all seen that, and I'm going to probably talk about that a little bit more towards the end. But now I want to, and I timed this podcast because I knew I was just about through the first draft of my second book, and I've talked a little bit about it. I've teased it on my author page. And yesterday being Friday, so this is going to air on Sunday, so it'll be 2 days ago, I finally officially finished the first draft. It's not even close to being done, don't worry, but I made it to the end, roughly 72,500 words, which is way off from where I'd like it to be. I'd like it to be closer to 100,000 words. I think there's more to this story. There's more to some of the subplots that I have not told yet, and once I get back into it, just read through it, I'm pretty sure I will likely be doing some changes at that point. Give me just a second here. I'm going to plug my computer back in. Okay, so I'm going to give you the first look at what I've been working on for the last several months, and those of you who know me know I'm a big horror fan. You can see over my shoulder my big Halloween poster, and I've also got a Friday the 13th poster, and I've got some other things on the wall. So I've been a big horror fan my whole life, and I've always wanted to write horror. Pummeled is not a horror story. It is more of an action drama with some elements of kind of darker elements. There's a lot of genres involved in it, but I would definitely not call it horror. My next novel, though, is horror, and I'm going to show it to you now. This is what I have come up with. The title is Dragon's Blood. Now, this is a story that I would say 100% horror. So, just going to read I know I've got a bit of a glare there, so let me see. Is that a little better? Okay. So, it starts off about kind of reminisce back into the early part of the 1930s and the Great Depression. A group of kids find this sort of reptilian little thing in the woods. Turns out it's not the nicest thing. They return it to the woods. It creates havoc. They have to do some things to basically stop its a little reign of terror that it begins. And now about 88 not to 90 years later, there's a new twist to the story. And so I'll just kind of leave it at that. I do want to hone in on this image that I'm using as my cover page here. That is, and I took that picture. I didn't take the picture actually. I manipulated the picture using some software to kind of make it look a little creepier. But that is something, I think it's a piece of jewelry, I guess you want to call it, from a friend of mine named Carrie Atkins. She does what you call circuit treats. And those circuit treats are little pieces of jewelry that she creates out of old computer video game kind of parts, these little wires and metal things. And she kind of formulates them into little pieces of I guess you'd call them jewelry. It's really cool. And I saw that when she posted that one on her Facebook page. And the story just kind of hit me. I saw it and it was so cool. And I was like, it looks like a little tree with a little dome on it. And so I did a little research. And if you actually Google Dragon's Blood, you'll see that there's a tree called the Dragon's Blood. And it's kind of got that little shape to it. So that's kind of how that came about. And once you finally read the story, which I hope a lot of you and all of you will, you'll kind of understand where it came from. So that's where the title came from. That's where the idea came from. And that's what I love about writing, is sometimes you just see an image or hear a phrase sometimes, and it completely opens up a whole giant novel or story for you to write. So that's kind of how I've gone about it. So Dragon's Blood is, again, I just finished the first draft. I will be working for a while, I'm sure, on at least the first couple edits, and then at some point, at least after the first edit, or maybe even after the second edit, I'll try to get some beta readers, because I would like to hear more, because again, like I said, I want to add to this. It's not long enough yet. That's what she said. And so I think there's more to the story that I probably haven't expanded on, and that's what I want to do with this one. But I think it's a good story. I think it's turning out well. Like I said, I outlined the whole thing, and so far I think it's really coming along nicely. So I'm really happy about getting through the first draft. So now the story is about getting second draft, third draft, however many drafts it takes, before I want to try to publish it. And actually, speaking of publishing, I published Pummeled through the Amazon CreateSpace account. It's a self-publishing thing, because it's extremely hard to find a publisher, especially living in central Illinois, where I like to say creativity goes to die. So unfortunately, we're not in a place where there's a lot of options. Now, granted, there is the internet, but you've got thousands of people trying to get published. So to get a traditional publisher to actually catch on to your novel, it could take a long time before they would even read it. And they're so inundated, it's really difficult. I'm going to keep researching to see if I can't find maybe a small publishing house to take the second one. So who knows? But for the time being, Pummeled again went through Amazon, and you can buy it through Amazon. Again, you can also buy it through me directly. If you just message me, we'll figure something out as well. Okay, so next I want to talk a little bit about, I've already got future book ideas, just because I've been able to figure out a formula that works after 40 some odd years. So I've come up with, about a half dozen ideas that I've come up with. A couple of them are older ideas that kind of stalled, that I might want to return to. Again, most of these look like they are kind of in the horror, sci-fi, kind of genre, kind of dark kind of thing. And one of them is the Pummeled sequel. I know somebody asked me if I was going to do a series of books on it. I do have an idea for a sequel. It's not exactly the top of my lists kind of a sequel. It would be something that I would do a few books down the line. But there definitely is an idea for a sequel. The most recent idea that I came up with was based on some Hulu series that I watched. Actually, it was a History Channel series on Hulu. Two different series. There was one on the Zodiac Killer and one on Jack the Ripper, where a guy thinks that his great-great-grandfather was actually Jack the Ripper. H.H. Holmes, who was a serial killer in Chicago, he believes he was Jack the Ripper. I kind of watched those two series and got this idea to write a story about a fictitious serial killer from the 20s and 30s who was never caught, and the main character is this historian, this faculty member at a college who takes a sabbatical because he thinks he's found some evidence that might help him solve what they call I call it the Gentle Death murders, because it happens in a fictitious suburb of Chicago named I think I called it Gentle Waters, Illinois, or something like that. I don't know. And the people called him the Gentle Death Killer because he was never found, and that was the city it came out in, or something like that. So, but as he starts researching, copycat killings begin, and I mean, I really haven't dug too deep into it yet, but to me, it's a really fascinating idea to do kind of a serial killer type of a story as well, because those can be kind of the scarier ones. You get things that are not very realistic in horror, and you think, well, I'm not as scared of this because this is something that can never happen. Whereas you get tales of, like my favorite, Halloween, just a serial killer story about a guy, a normal person. So those can be the scarier ones because they can actually come true. And that's what I'm trying to make this out to be. Who knows? Maybe I'll throw some surreal, supernatural crap into it. Who knows? So, we'll see. Another story that I've thought about that I started and then stopped, and because I didn't really have a whole idea of it, was the idea of a man with cognitive ability, mind reading abilities, who's sort of been brought in to help figure out the death, some mysterious deaths that have happened, and the idea is that the person responsible for these deaths also has this ability. So they're kind of going back and forth as to find out who the killer is. I don't know. The tentative title is Cognition. Again, that's another story though that I kind of started and then stopped because I really didn't have a whole lot of I didn't outline it well. I didn't outline it at all, actually. So I really didn't have an end result here for that. There's another one that I just came up with called Leo, L-I-O, would be the title of it. And it's the story about a prehistoric aquatic dinosaur that's called the Leopleurodon. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, I don't know. I love, shark stories like Jaws, and The Meg just came out. I saw that. I really liked that as well. There was an old story called The Beast about this gigantic squid. To me, aquatic killers, that's something that I think is really kind of cool, and maybe a story surrounding this prehistoric thing that was thought to be extinct, and one is found or one awakens, something like that. Again, haven't put a lot of thought into it. That's just sort of the idea, the topic that I want to go into. There's another story that I started writing probably 10 or 15 years ago, and it's called Defiance. It's about a group of travelers, and they go into this town, and it's called Defiance, and the town it's kind of a ghost town. All of a sudden, it's become a ghost town, and but they're having trouble finding their way out of this town. They discover how a town becomes a ghost town. That it's not just economic, and it's not just people leaving. There might be something sinister and something that's not known. It's something a little supernatural that happens to a town that makes it a ghost town, and the town basically dies, so to speak, like literally dies. So that's something that I started several years ago, but again, I just started writing and didn't really have a direction on it. So if I go back to that one, I'm gonna love to kind of put together little pieces of or little outlines of where I want it to go, how I want it to go, how I want it to end. If you don't have an end point, you could find yourself in some trouble. Just to, again, tell you from experience, if you don't have a finishing spot of where you want your story to go, you are going to have a lot of writer's block, and you're going to have a lot of trouble. So, again, you need kind of a finishing line. You need to know where you want to go with it, and it can always change. The finishing line can change for sure. If you start writing something and another idea pops into your head on where to go with the story, I'd say go with it. Maybe don't completely eliminate the original idea, but if you want to take it another direction and it goes better, hey, by all means, it's your story. So those are sort of the ideas that I'm coming up with for my next series of books. So that could take a long time. I might start writing something again, at least getting outlines for some of these in the meantime. But for the time being, I'm going to keep pushing forward on this on Dragon's Blood, which is again, I just finished the first draft. Happy about that, but I know I need to add a lot more. I'm hoping to get at least another 30,000 words, which is quite a bit. But I have a feeling that I can find more pieces that that I can expand upon of the story so far. Once I really sit down and start reading it over, it will come to me. And if it only ends up being an 80,000 word book, then so be it. I don't want it to be boring in parts. I don't want to be, sounding too wordy and it not flowing the way it should. So I do think there's more to it, but if there isn't, so be it. I'll release it. I will release and publish it when I believe it is at its best. So, okay, wow, nothing else really to talk about my writing. I guess I could also say I've kind of been toying around the idea. I've written 10 stage plays in the last, since the last 20 years or so. And I've thought about maybe now that I have discovered this self-publishing, of possibly putting them into a collection of plays to be published. But if that happens, I'll we'll see. I don't know. I need to do some editing on those as well before I would ever decide to do something like that. Okay, so once again, if you have not purchased your copy, you can get pummeled through Amazon, or you can get it through me directly. Just message me directly on Facebook, on either my Facebook page as well as my Facebook author page, either one, and let me know you're interested in buying a copy. I would also recommend, hey, the holidays are coming up. Anybody who likes to read, here's a good Christmas present. Or you can ask somebody, family or friends, to buy you a copy for Christmas, whatever. I want people to read it. I know I'm not going to break the bank selling these, but I'd like people to read it. I like people who enjoy reading to get a chance to see what I've created and get some feedback as well. Again, go to Amazon, go to Goodreads, leave a review. Thank you for watching. I will be posting another podcast next week. And actually, let me pull up real quick my podcast list. Next week is I'm going to talk about the importance of animal rescue, dogs in particular, because I'm a big dog fan. I have 2 dogs myself, and I'll introduce you to both of them. So, and kind of go through their stories and why I feel it is very important, especially if you're going to be a dog owner, that rescuing is a great thing. Other episodes that are coming up, I've got an episode, because obviously I'm a big Cub fan. I'll do an episode on the Cubs. My thoughts on the Cubs, not only this year, but some of the past and the future. Episode 4 is entitled Binge. That's coming up. I'm going to talk about some of the binge of watching series that we've done. A lot of good ones. It's a new thing that's out there. Netflix, Hulu, all those fun little things. You can kind of binge watch hours and hours of shows. So I'll give you some of my favorites. Creativity the Right Way is episode 5, and that is going to be, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about writing process. I told you a little bit today, but I'm going to give you go a little bit more into detail. So if you're interested in creative writing, whether it be novels, short fiction, plays, etc., I'll give you some tips on how to get going, how to find ideas, how to make it work, basically. Episode 6, What's Your Gig? I'll talk a little bit more about how to have fun at work and how to find things that you enjoy doing. Again, I may have a full-time job, but I work several others. Obviously, I write novels. I also work on, and I'll just show you real quick, I also freelance write for So Magazine. This is the most recent issue. I have several articles in this. Again, I've always loved to write, so that's another thing that I do. I do ghost walks, the Lincoln Ghost Walk downtown. I'll talk about that. Episode 007, I'm a big James Bond fan, so I'll give you my thoughts on James Bond, the movies, where it's at today, some of the ideas, because we're going to have a new Bond in the next couple of years, I think. So we'll talk about that. Episode 8, Fantasy Fun. That's about fantasy sports. I have a lot of friends who are fantasy sports folks. I do a number of fantasy teams. I'm on a number of keeper leagues. Some have been good, some have been, crap. But talk a little bit about that and how some of the ideas, how you can have fun playing fantasy sports. Then episodes 9 and 10. We're gonna be in October at this point, so of course you know me. I love my Halloween. So episode 9, King of the Macabre, is going to be all about Stephen King, some of my favorite Stephen King novels, some of the ones that I think have been excellent books, excellent movies, not so excellent books, because he's not perfect. He's had some stinkers out there as well. And then the final episode of this season, the horror of the horror. So I'm just going to talk about horror movies, horror in general, why I'm such a fan of horror. So that's kind of where we're headed with this podcast. So again, I hope I've not put all of you to sleep. I hope you're entertained by this. If you have any comments, any questions, anything about anything that I've talked about today, or in the episodes coming up, just shoot me a comment. I might be putting this on my YouTube page, because I think I have a YouTube page. I don't know. Everyone does, right? So I might put it out there. So if you're a YouTube person and you follow YouTube pages, maybe follow my page. Again, I need to do a little studying up on that and how that works, because I watch YouTube. I don't really know how to manage that kind of stuff. So, okay, so thank you again for watching, and I will see you next week.